7th Canto, Chapter 1, I think verses 11 and 12, maybe 13 also. Shukadeva Goswami giving conclusion, Parikshit Maharaj has inquired about basically the subject matter of theodicy, which means, theodicy means like vindicating God from the criticism of cruelty because of partiality, giving a nice position to one against another. So Parikshit Maharaj has asked about how this is possible. In the 6th canto, it was saying that Krishna sided with the Devas against the Asuras. So Parikshit Maharaj wants to know, how is it that one who is the super soul of everyone, therefore dear to everyone, and the friend of everyone, could show partiality to the Devas and against the Asuras? So in reply to that, this passage has been discussed, showing that actually the Lord only acts for the pleasure of his devotees. He doesn't act for the pleasure of the Devas or the Asuras. In accordance with the requirements of the Leela, the Supreme Lord will infuse his own energy into both the Devas and the Asuras so they can participate in the Leela, otherwise it would be impossible. Just as the sunlight might infuse a magnifying glass with its own power, by which the magnifying glass appears to burn a dry leaf, or the scent of the earth may be infused into the air, by which it appears that the air is smelling in a particular way. So like that, the Lord is infusing his own energy into the Devas and Asuras, allowing the Devas to assist or the Asuras to oppose him. The Lord employs the time energy, which has been identified as his own wish, swacheshta, his own will. And according to his own will, time is unfolding the material energy, or you can say the material energy is conforming to time, and time is causing the unfolding of nature in accordance with the requirements of the Leela. And so sometimes it's appearing that the Devatas are, exalted against the demons and the Rakshasas. And then sometimes it appears that the Rakshasas and demons are ascendant against the Devas. So this is all a requirement with the Leela of the Lord. So this is the main reason why the Lord performs his Leelas. The Shakti is not seen in the same way that the soul is not seen within the body, or in the same way that, let's say, the particular element that allows you to see a particular object is mixed in with other elements, and therefore you consider that the object itself is the cause of the perception and not the particular tejas aspect of the aggregate that is allowing you to see the object. In this same way, the Lord's Shakti is not seen because it's mixed in with the aggregate of the material body. But actually, this is all the Lord's Shakti that is doing this. Is basic ideas that were covered. It was also mentioned there by extrapolation that just as the maintenance of the universe in the form of the assistance of the Devas and the killing of the Asuras is done for the pleasure of the devotees, and the maintenance of the universe is simply incidental. So also the creation and even the dissolution of the universe is also by extrapolation for the pleasure of the devotees, specifically the practicing devotees who have yet to perfect the devotion. And other things happen just incidentally. So creation is really in response to the bhakti of those sadhakas who have yet to attain sadhya. And of course, as the creation is unfolding, there's so many other things. The other jivas are allowed to get their karmic reactions, but this is all incidental. His own purpose is actually in relationship to his devotees only. And therefore, this is in reciprocation with the devotion. So in this way, the Lord is not partial. Like a desire tree, those who approach him receive the fruits of their desires, and those who don't approach him don't receive anything. So that has nothing to do with him being partial to one opposed to the other. So like this, the subject matter has been covered over the last week or so. So now he wants to conclude the subject matter. This is verse number 11. Kalam charantam chajatisha ashrayam pradhana pungyam narateva satyakrit. Translation, O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of the material and spiritual energies, who is certainly the creator of the entire cosmos, creates the time factor to allow the material energy and the living entity to act within the limits of time. Thus, the Supreme Personality is never under the time factor nor under the material energy. So the Lord is referred to here in this verse as Satyakrit, which means one whose actions are true, Satya. According to Prabhupada's purport and other commentary, also, the meaning here is that his acts, such as creation, are real, they're not false. The impersonalists say, Brahman Satya Jagamitya. So Brahman is real and the universe is false. It is simply an imagination. So this is denied by this particular phrase, Satyakrit. The universe is not false, it is real because God is real. So the effects coming from God, such the various Shaktis, so they are also real. Only thing that is false is our identification with it. That is false. But the energy is a very real energy. And so his creation is real. The maintenance is real. The dissolution, all of this is real. So he is referred to here as Satyakrit. So this Satyakrit, he uses Kalam Charantam. So Kalam Charantam means the time energy. Kalam Charantam, moving according to the time. So time is identified here as the volitional act of God, basically his wish. Time is identified as his wish, and according to his wish or his will, the time energy is engaged and causes the unfolding of the cosmos. The general understanding of time in sacred texts is that time is what causes nature to change shape or move. I often like to give the example of a kaleidoscope, just like when you're looking at the kaleidoscope and you're seeing the beautiful images created therein. So you are different from the thing that you're looking at. So we are like the jiva looking at Prakriti and seeing the different shapes that it takes and being like, at least when we were children, maybe not so much as adults. Although incidentally, when I was in Nashville, someone took a workshop to create a kaleidoscope. So they gave us a kaleidoscope to use that time. And all the adults, maybe because someone had made it and, say, hey, I made this at this workshop. We were all like, oh, so pretty. So like this, the jiva is getting bewildered by the different shapes that it's looking at in nature. And the different shapes, just like when you turn a kaleidoscope, and that's how it takes the different shapes. So this time energy is what's causing nature to take its different shapes, which the jiva then becomes preoccupied with. I think this is a good analogy. I've never heard this used before, so it's a creative speculation, a philosophical speculation here. So this time, which causes nature to change shape, this time is identified as the wish of Krishna or his will, Swacheshta. And this is his own will that time becomes activated and causes nature to move in this particular way. So Kalam Charantam, Shrijati Isha means the Supreme Lord who's the creator using this time energy, which is his own volitional act or his wish. Ashrayam Pradhana Pumpyam. So this time factor is moving in progression with the jivas and Prakriti, or in other words, it is the support for Prakriti and the jivas, and it is the cause of the unfolding of the various events of Prakriti and the jiva. Now, this is true generally of time, but when time is identified as Krishna's wish, it means that Krishna has a wish for the Leela to unfold in a particular way. And then the time factor is used as an instrument to support the unfolding of that Leela in a particular way. And so this time factor is this time factor, which is actually Krishna's wish. It is the energy which is kind of causing nature to move in conformity with the needs of the Leela. Particularly here, because Srijati Isha is being used here, the Lord who is the creator. The idea here is that time is causing time as the instrument of God is causing the manifestation or creation of nature to support the devotees who are sadhakas and who need bodies in order to complete their devotional sadhana. So that is the meaning here, because the Lord's wish is always in connection to his devotees. And therefore, our Acharya, specifically Jiva Goswami, is speaking in this way, that the time as the instrument of God is being used to unfold nature, to give support to the devotees who are needing to complete their sadhana and attain the goal of their devotion, the sadhya, bhava, and prema. And of course, naturally, when employed, the rest of nature is also unfolding, giving the other jivas the opportunity to play out their karmas. And so the word here, Naradeva, so Naradeva is a reference to Parikshit Maharaj. It means, O ruler of men, or the Deva, God amongst men. So the king was supposed to be the representative of God. So he was known as Naradeva, God amongst men. But Jiva Goswami, in relationship to this phrase, says the meaning here is that just like when a king, he comes out of the kingdom on some journey to do something, many other things get accomplished automatically, right? So the king may just be visiting another king in some other kingdom. But as he comes out, the roads are prepared nicely. People come out to worship him. Maybe some of the citizens come out to complain, bring their complaints to the king. So many other things get accomplished in tandem with the king coming out of his castle to do something else. He has a particular mission in mind, but in tandem with that mission, so many other things automatically get accomplished. So in the same way, when God employs his time energy to cause the unfolding of nature, so many other things are also getting accomplished, like allowing the rest of the jivas who are averse to devotion to play out their karmas. The next verse is actually connected to this. Prabhupada split it into two. So the next verse says, Ya Esha Rajan Apikala Ishita Satvam Surani Kam Ivadhayataha Tapratyanikam Asuran Surapriya Rajastamaskan Pramanot Durushravaha. This is Prabhupada's translation. O king, this time factor enhances the Satoguna. Thus, although the Supreme Lord is the controller, he favors the demigods who are mostly situated in Satoguna. Then the demons who are influenced by Tamaguna are annihilated. The Supreme Lord induces the time factor to act in different ways, but he is never partial. Rather, his activities are glorious, and therefore he is called Urushrava. So idea here is that Yad Esha Rajana Pikala Ishita Satvam Suranika Iva Adya Yatyataha. The idea here is that the Lord is employing this time factor, and it appears that it supports the Devatas, Satvam Suranikam. It appears that the time factor is supporting the Devatas who are situated in Satogun and destroying the Asuras, Tapratyanikam Asuran Surapriya. This time factor, of course, you can say time factor is doing it, but since time is the wish of the Lord, you can say Paramatma is also doing it. Either way, either you say time is the one causing nature to move, but since time is causing nature to move in conformity with the desire of the Leela, or the desire of the Lord for the Leela, so you can say Paramatma is doing. Either way, either God is doing or time is doing. It appears that time or God is supporting the Devas and destroying the demons. That is the Sattva Suranikam and Pratyanikam Asuran Surapriya. So why is this? So the mention here is this. Surapriya. The word Surapriya means one who is dear to the Suras. So God is one who is dear to the Devatas. That is a straightforward meaning. But Jiva Goswami gives an extrapolated meaning because of all the conclusions we've been hearing. That Surapriya means one who is dear to the Suras. So the word Sura is taken as a devotee who is amongst the Devatas. So the devotee who is, he chills with the Devatas. Devotees don't generally chill with the demons. They chill with the Devatas, or they're around them. So those devotees who are around the devatas, those devotees find the Lord very dear. And so the Lord finds them also very dear. That's what we've been hearing. Those who perform worship of God with devotion, then he is in them and they are in him because of mutual attachment. The Lord's attachment is so strong to his devotees that Krishna says in Gita, even if my devotee does the most abominable, heinous activity, if he is Ananya Bhakt, he has exclusive devotion to Krishna, then that devotee should be considered a sadhu. Sadhura eva samantavya. He should be considered a sadhu in all respects. Even when he's doing something a little bit crazy, even then he should be considered a sadhu. Samya vyavasito hisaha, because he is situated in his determination and devotion. So this verse of Gita, which many pious people get annoyed with because they out here working hard to be virtuous, devotee out over here wilding out, and Krishna's like, he should be considered a sadhu. They like, what is this nonsense? They don't like to hear such things. Why I should work so hard to be virtuous if this guy can do whatever he wants, but because he's a devotee, he can do it with impunity. Some pious people may find it disturbing, but the actual idea of the verse is Krishna's expressing the extent of his attachment to devotees. Because in the previous verse, he's saying that those who do my bhajan with devotion, then I am in them and they are in me because of mutual attachment. And then Krishna wants to express the extent of his attachment to his devotees. So he says, even if, apichat means that, even if means generally the devotee is he's not wilding out. Devotee means one who is not attracted to virtue or vice. He's just attracted to devotion. So he is not doing, but Krishna is saying, even if he does, I'm so attached to my devotee that I consider him a sadhu in all respects. So there's a verse expressing his attachment. So the word Surapriya in this particular verse we're looking at refers to the devotees who are amongst the devatas. So the Lord is reciprocating with those devotees who are amongst the devatas. And therefore, because he's supporting the devotees who are amongst the devatas are supported by Krishna's energy, time, or by Krishna himself, and they have become victorious over the asuras. That is the reason why the Leela plays out like that. If the real point here is that if the devotees were amongst the asuras, then the asuras would be favored and the devatas would be defeated. That is also seen in Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, later on in the 8th canto, we'll hear about Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj is the king of the asuras, but he is also a great devotee of Bhagavan. So it is saying that he is exalted or victorious over the devatas because of his being a devotee. So that is the real point of this passage according to Jiva Goswami. If the devotees are on the side of the asuras, then the asuras will be benefited. If the devotees on the side of the devatas, which is general because the devatas generally have some predisposition towards God, then the devatas would be successful. If the question is asked, why is it always seen inevitably that God supports the devatas in all respects? So this is the answer. And why not the asuras? So here in the verse it says, Rajastamaskan Pramanoti. Rajastamaskan means he destroys those in Rajas and Tamas. The idea here is that generally those in Rajas and Tamas, that those natures are opposed to God, they're opposed to bhakti, they're opposed to bhaktas. Bhagavan, Bhakti, Bhakta, those who are Rajaguna, Tamaguna, they generally are opposed to that. Therefore, it is generally seen that the devatas who have the support of the devotees, therefore have the support of God and become victorious. But again, the real point is that if the devotees were amongst the asuras, as it sometimes happens in some of the stories, then the asuras would be protected and exalted in accordance with the Leela. So in accordance with the names of the Leela. So in all this case, the point is that the Lord is not partial. He's actually equal to everyone. According to who approach him, he's reciprocating in kind, or he's just utterly neutral towards everyone. But those who have devotion to him, so devotion is his own energy. It is God playing with his own energy. So he's very impartial to what's going on in nature. And he's very like internal, playing with his own energy in the form of bhaktas and bhakti. But even one other point is made here with the word Urusharva. Urusharva means one whose glory, Shava, is spread, is widespread. And the reason for this, according to Prabhupada's purport and Jiva Goswami also, is that even in the Leela where God is killing the Asuras get benefited also. They become devoted, or they become liberated. In some cases, they become like devotees, and in most cases, they become liberated. So Prabhupada and Jiva Goswami quotes this one verse, Aho Bhakiyam Stanakala Kutam. This verse is spoken by Uddhava to Vidura, where he's describing the mercy of Krishna. That Putana came, she smeared her breast with the poison and wanted to kill Krishna. But she dressed up as a devotee, so she was really looking like a devotee. It's described that the Brijbasis saw her as a goddess of fortune. And she came and put her breast in Krishna's mouth with the purpose of killing him. But because she appeared as a devotee, like a mother, like a wet nurse, so Krishna reciprocated with her as if she was a mother. He killed her, but he gave her a position like a mother in the spiritual world, like a wet nurse. So this verse is quoted, Kamyam Dalayum Sharana Brijay. Who can be more merciful than Krishna, who is done like this? So the idea here is that even when the Asuras are chastised, as they inevitably are in a lot of the Leelas, still they get benefit from that chastisement. So this is also the other way in which it is trying to be explained that God is impartial. Even when he seems to oppose the Asuras and chastise them, they still get the benefit of getting liberation, something that even advanced yogis who've been doing, their Gyan yoga sadhana for years and years and years and years, or lifetimes, even they don't get such opportunity. So in this way, he is also impartial, that those who are getting chastised, they also get the benefit. So, yes. One other point here, next verse, it comes from the next verse, and then we'll stop here. I see some questions are there. Atraivo dharita purvam itihasa surashina pritya mahakrato rajnam prichate ajata shatrave. So now Shukadeva Goswami wants to give an example of what he's talking about. So this ends the passage. Translation: Formerly, O king, when Maharaj Yudhishthira was performing the Rajasuya sacrifice, the great sage Narada, responding to his inquiry, recited historical facts showing how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always impartial, even when killing demons. In this regard, we have a vivid example. Sridhar Swami, commenting on this particular verse, says that the Leelas they're going to mention are the Leelas of Nrsingadev killing Hiranyakashipu and Varahadev killing Hiranyaksha. So in the play of the Leela, it is saying that the Lord has done the killing of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha for the pleasure of his devotees. Hiranyakashipu was accosting a devotee, Prahlad Maharaj, and Hiranyaksha was accosting a devotee also, Mother Earth. So in support of his devotees, the Lord has appeared to kill these demons. But these demons themselves also got the benefit of liberation. So in this way, even in his apparent partiality toward the devotees, all were benefited who participated in the Leela. Sridhar Swami also makes one other interesting comment here, that Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, as we'll come to, we've heard earlier and we'll come to here in this chapter also, they were Narayana's gatekeepers, Jaya and Vijay, so they themselves were great devotees, but they were cursed to take these particular births. How they were cursed to take these births? Because that was desired for the Leela. One Leela was needed to be played out, so they were cursed to take birth as demons. And so in order to remove the effect of that curse and release his devotees from that curse, the Lord has acted in this particular way by killing them. So even in that case, he was actually benefiting devotees, his devotees, Jaya and Vijay, and not, just being inimical to demons. He was actually benefiting the devotees. So basically, Sridhar Swami's comment is supporting Alajiva Goswami's conclusions in this passage. That the Lord is acting exclusively for his devotees, that he empowers different parts of the material energy to support or oppose in accordance with the needs of the Leela. Everyone in the Leela gets benefited by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, where is his partiality? Therefore, he's impartial. And you cannot claim that he is cruel or favoring one material entity opposed to the other. So like this ends this sort of passage. And now they're going to go into a little bit of the story, which is very interesting. So we'll pause here because now we're entering a new section or a new passage. Okay, so let's see. We see there are a few questions. Athena has questions first, and then Mukunda has a question also.
Hi. I have a few. Yes. My first one is, and I'm still, I guess, somewhat processing it, but it's interesting. Would you say that spiritual energy is a fixed energy? And I say that because, spiritual energy, we've always said is eternal, which means there's no beginning and end. However, in the context of time, the way another way that I would look at it is spiritual energy is fixed in that, for example, when it comes in contact with a material energy of time, it does not shift and change. And so when something is material, like the nature, when it comes in contact with time, which is a material energy, it shifts and forms and changes. So material energy is malleable and spiritual energy is fixed. Was that one way that we could categorize it?
Yeah, you can say like that. Material energy has vikara, which means transformations, and spiritual energy is abhikara, without the transformation.
Right. And I guess it's important to say it's transformation, not like specifically deterioration, because there's a lot of they say like, oh, the moment you take birth, the body's starting to die, and you're taking like, each day step closer to your death. But I mean, that's not necessarily true, because you have the growth aspect where like the baby grows, like a seed grows and fructifies into a plant. So it's not that it's actually death or deteriorating. That's not correct. That material energy always, or time is not, I would say it's incomplete or incorrect to say that time is an energy that causes deterioration, because material also grows. So transformation would be the more proper word.
Yeah, both are okay. Krishna says, time I am the destroyer of everything in Bhagavad Gita. So that is also okay. And time is that which causes transformation. That is also okay.
But so you're saying it's still accurate to say that even though a plant is growing, a baby is, yes, a baby is growing, that's still death, like closer to deterioration?
It depends on how you're thinking about it. How, just like sometimes we say, we say happy birthday, but actually we're going closer to death with each birthday. So, the materialists, they say happy birthday, but the yogi says this is closer to death with nothing happy about it. So it depends on how you're thinking about it and what sort of angle you want to take. The thing about the logic is you can explain things in different ways, and it has, as long as the logic has internal consistency, it could be accepted. That's why ultimately we say logic has no foundation, because you can almost prove anything with good enough logic. So it just depends on how you want to explain a particular subject matter and context. Both can be fine. If Krishna is telling in Gita time, I am the destroyer of everything, or he says, of subduers, I am time. So that means he's taking a particular direction there when he says that. So it just depends on how you want to talk about a subject.
Thank you. My next question is related to that verse 930. And I guess I just want to check. that, ultimately, and I feel like when you explain it, it's very clear that when Krishna specifically referring to one engaged in devotional service, like my devotee, that's still a very, very high elevated platform. It doesn't mean that just one practicing bhakti is considered quote
Why
unquote
not?
this devotee. I'm sorry?
I said, why not? Why can't they
Oh,
be a practicing devotee?
well, because specifically say Ananya Bhav, right? Ananya means pure, right? And then also looking at the
Ananya means like having no other. Like the word anya means like other, like anya bilashita shunyam, other desires. So ananya means like without other, like knowing no other but Krishna. Ananya bhak, I only know Krishna, I only know bhakti.
but
So the
exactly.
basic idea is that this person, he's done something, maybe he's done something crazy, but he doesn't take shelter of others. He just takes shelter of bhakti to solve the issue. So he is also called as a Nanya Bhak.
But to take shelter in exclusively bhakti is a very high platform. You could be a practicing bhakta and still take some shelter in the material energy.
Yeah, but it could be so anyway, in either case, a sadhaka can take shelter of Krishna exclusively. So it can also refer to a sadhaka. That is what we're saying.
Okay. Well, see, so taking a few steps back, like when we use ananya or without deviation, right? Like that to me means like pure devotee, like pure bhakta without deviation, exclusive devotion, and shelter in Krishna, which we would say that is our goal and that is our
No,
hope.
you're thinking, so there are two ways of thinking about it. You can think of pure devotion in terms of consciousness. That's how you're thinking about it and explaining it right now. But pure devotion can also just mean one who they do only bhakti as their sadhana. They don't do any other thing for their sadhana. Like the verse, akama sarva kama va moksha kama udhariti. Tirena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham paran. Second canto, chapter 3, verse 10. Whether you have no desires or you have all desires, sarva kama, or you have a desire for moksha. In all cases, you should do only bhakti. Tirena bhakti yogena. So someone who just does only bhakti, and then they're also called as a Naya Bhakt. There has to be such sadhakas like that. The definition of pure devotion given by Rupa Goswami, Anyabilashita Shunyam Garan Kamandi Anavritam. He says his pure devotion has three forms, sadhana, bhava, and prema. So sadhana is a type of Ananya Bhakt, and it's a type of pure devotion. So there must be some sadhakas who have that. So speaking of those sadhakas also, even if they do something wild and crazy, but they only take shelter of Krishna. Like suppose they go to prison for something criminal activity, then they just chant Hare Krishna and they just like Haridas Thakur telling the prisoners that may you always be like this, and they got disturbed. And he said, no, you guys are in prison, so you're not doing fruitive activity, and you're always expecting the mercy of Krishna. So may you always remain like this. So then this Ananya Bhak also. They also count it. Why not? If the whole creation can take place just for the sadhakas, then why not sadhaka included within the fold of Krishna's dispensation or attachment? Apichasudaracharo. He created a whole cosmos just to give them a chance to perfect their bhakti. So
Okay.
why not this?
So thank you. So one can still have all anartas and practice sadhaka, but taking shelter in Krishna, then they are considered saintly sadhu.
Yeah.
I guess this is, well, I remember in one lecture you had said, and when you had quoted this verse, you said it's for Krishna, like highlighting his devotees, and ultimately it's because his devotees don't actually do abominable actions.
Yeah, so I just said that now also. Apichat, when he says even if, so the sense is that devotees don't do crazy things. But his point is, even if they do crazy things, my attachment to them is so strong that I say that they are considered sadhu. Sadhu reva. Someone may say, well, when they're acting like sadhu, they're sadhu. But when they're doing wilding out, they're not sadhu. And Krishna says, no, sadhura eva, in all cases they are sadhu. Samantavya, this is an injunction. I think Sri Vishwanath writing, trying to give us a feel for the verse, says that Krishna like hits his chest, to chastise those who would say otherwise. So his feeling is like this. So we said that today also, that the devotees are generally not doing. But his point is that even if they do.
Okay, thank you. But so, and then on this point, this is long back, we had this discussion of like, what is considered a good person, quote unquote. And, I would say like a materialist, their definition of who is a good person might, different than, I guess, I know it's like not completely clear, but then it would be an accurate statement if I said basically, like, if I were speaking to a materialist in one sense, based on this verse, that if you are practicing sadhaka, then you are a good person. Like you are saint.
Definitely. Why not? Why not? Well, okay. What if they killed people? Okay, so that wasn't a good thing. Still, that killing is temporary. The bhakti part is eternal. So we obviously don't talk like this to materialist people. They have no context for appreciating. Even the devotees having a hard time with this one.
Right.
Anyway, the purpose, we have to keep in mind the purpose of the verse. The purpose of the verse is not to give devotees a pass to wild out and do whatever they want. That's not what he's saying. Krishna is expressing the nature of his attachment to bhaktas. And so he's saying his attachment is such that even if they do something abominable, I consider them a sadhu because they're fixed in their determination to become my devotee. Ananya bhak, samya yavasito hisaha, they're fixed in their determination to approach him, to be with him. So that is the part that he's expressing his appreciation and attachment for that. Just like when Krishna says, a couple of verses later after that, he says, those who take shelter of bhakti, what is that? Even women, shudras, vaishyas, like this, then they will achieve the supreme perfection. Sometimes ladies get upset about this verse because they hear it as, oh, so women are lowborn. They're hearing it like that. But actually his point is that even if you're lowborn, this bhakti is so universal that even if you're lowborn, woman, actually there are different ways this can be read, but let's just take that reading because that's how Prabhupada translates it. A few acharyas translate it like that. Even if you are lowborn, including women, that you will achieve the supreme perfection. So he's glorifying the power of bhakti, but someone is taking the other point and getting upset about it. His point is not about women being lowborn. That's not what he's trying to say. He's trying to say that bhakti is universal and that even if someone is considered lowborn or in fact lowborn, they can achieve the full perfection by this bhakti. So same with 930. He's trying to express the nature of his attachment to bhakti, to bhaktas. So even if, that's the point that he's trying to make, I'm attached to them. Not that now here's our card to just go and do wild things.
Right, thank you. Understood that the highest point for 930 is to show Krishna's attachment to devotees. I'm curious though, could we use 930 as pramana though, that this is proof that when one takes to bhakti, one will soon become a saint or become saintly? Like say there is, you gave all these examples, like they're in prison, they killed someone, right? But there's chanting Hare Krishna. Now they're taken to devotional service and practicing bhakta. So essentially 930 is an example that when you take to the process of bhakti, you will be purified and you will become saintly, or you are even considered saintly now because you're properly fixed.
Yeah, anything can be taken as pramana for anything. That is the fun of scripture. Here's a nice verse from Bhagavad Gita. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. So suppose I'm some criminal. So I say, hey, look at this, praman. Even though I'm killing, I'm not having any reaction for that. Jaya. So that is the fun of scripture. So many things can be taken as pramana.
Mm. Thank you. And then my last question is regarding the example of Putana that you gave and how Krishna reciprocated that um, that he gave her a position of mother because she was dressed like a devotee. And I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm hung up by the words that you used, but what do you I mean what do you mean dress like a devotee? And ultimately, it's an internal thing. Bhakti is an internal thing, not an external thing. It might.
So the point here is that even by bhakti abhas, a semblance of bhakti, there are so many benefits that come even by bhakti abhas. What then to speak of actual bhakti? That is also the idea that we encounter in the Ajamil story in the 6th canto. Ajamil was actually chanting Namabhas, right? He wasn't even chanting to indicate Krishna or out of devotion to Krishna. He was chanting the name of his son. But by that chanting, so much bhakti came to him, so much benefit came. So if you can get all that benefit by Namabhas, then what to speak of chanting the name with devotion? So similarly, she dressed like a devotee. That was just means bhakti abhas. There was like a semblance of being a devotee. But by that semblance, she got so much benefit. What's to speak of actually having bhakti? That is the idea there.
Okay, thank you. And so ultimately, while we say like Krishna sees our intentions, ultimately this also highlights Krishna's mercy. Then
Yes.
Krishna is ultimately the most merciful, even in Okay, thank you so much.
Mukunda, you have something?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Just this on this point, you kind of addressed it with your example of Jay and Vijay, but on this point about the devotees always win because Krishna is on their side. This point comes up in so many classes where people like to give examples of like, oh, there was this time where this devotee was being accosted by, somebody held him at gunpoint and the devotee chanted or did something and they were saved because Krishna was on their side, right? But I have always found some trouble. I felt like those stories are not always telling the full story because that's just an example of a devotee that survived, right? Like
right.
there are also unfortunately examples of devotees who die in different ways, ways that are hard to understand. So I mean, you addressed this with this JVJ point about how, even a devotee that dies, it's not that they lost, right? Like there's Krishna's on their side, so therefore they won.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, the Krishna's on their side point is in the context of the leelas that we hear about Krishna. So the objection is coming, why is Krishna always taking the side of the devatas? If he's impartial, like sometimes he should take the side of asuras also, like rolling a dice, or flipping a coin. Okay, if it heads, I'll take the side of the devatas. If tails, I'll take the side of the asuras. Why is it invariably seen that he takes the side of the devas and the play of his leelas that we hear about in scripture? And so the answer is because there are devotees who are amongst the devatas. And so in reciprocation with those devotees, he appears to be always invariably on the side of the devatas. And therefore the devatas always come out victorious in the end because of that. Because of what? Because of having the great devotees amongst them with whom Krishna is actually reciprocating with. And so then by extrapolation, the point is, if there are great devotees among the asuras, so I gave the example of Bali Maharaj today, then it will be saying that they become victorious against the devatas. Because in reciprocation with the devotee who's amongst the asuras and with whom Krishna is actually reciprocating with. So the devatas always wins point is in the context of why it is saying in Krishna's Leela that he invariably sides with the devas. That's because their devotees are hanging out or hanging around the devas. Well, why aren't the devotees hanging around the asuras? Well, because the asuras are averse to them usually. Because of their Rajagun and Tamagun, they have aversion to Bhakti, Bhagavan, bhaktas. So the devotees aren't floating around those sorts of people, generally speaking. And therefore they're floating around the devatas, and therefore the Lord is siding with the devatas because of the presence of those great devotees with whom he's reciprocating with. Therefore the devatas are always seen to be winning almost invariably because of the support of God who's supporting those devatas amongst them. So that's kind of that thing, that point is in the context of like reading about the Leelas in the scriptures and wondering how could God always be siding with the devatas as if he's impartial. Yeah, this other point though, like devotees telling like contemporary stories about how the devotees always win, and kind of like leaving out the stories where devotees are, not winning. Like, for example, when you were speaking, I immediately thought of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who left his body by a very severe car accident.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there were devotees outside of ISKCON or who had issues with Tamal Krishna Maharaj who took that as evidence of something else and probably wrote their papers and put it on the internet and so on. So, and yeah, in that case, we might cite a different verse from scripture. No one can understand the plan of God. Bhishma Dev's statement from the 9th chapter of the 1st canto. Many great souls have inquired about it, but they come back without any answers. They become confused why God is doing certain things in the lives of certain devotees, including causing them to leave their bodies in dramatic ways. Or like in the last canto, we heard about Shruta being cursed to go to hell or become a demon. That seems pretty severe. I mean, to be cursed to be a demon doesn't sound like a nice thing. And yet that was the arrangement of God for the purpose of exalting that devotee and elevating him. So in those sorts of cases, yeah, what can we say? Who knows what's going on in the life of what God is doing in the life of a devotee? So better to keep quiet. Even like Parikshit Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj disrespects a yogi. Yeah, it seems like a slight disrespect, but Shringi didn't take it that way. He took it another way, and he cursed him to die in 7 days. And so someone may say, well, if he was a great devotee, why would he be cursed to die in 7 days? If the Lord, the Lord protected him in the womb, therefore, why didn't the Lord protect him now? He must have done something really offensive. So now the Lord, people will give their own purport. So you cannot say when God is not directly appearing and performing leelas, then who can say what is actually going on in those particular cases? We just offer our obeisances to the mystery of it all. Whereas when you're hearing scripture and you're hearing about, theophany, like God's actual appearance, and this is what he's doing when he appears, he's actually siding with one against the other. So that requires some explanation. If God is impartial, if God just never appeared, then it would be in some ways you can just say, yeah, he's equal to everyone. And he doesn't appear for anyone. He doesn't help anyone. He's not against anyone. People are getting the results of their karma. Like this, there would be ways to explain that. But when God actually appears, you can actually see, or in our case, hear about him like siding with one against another. So that requires, all this explanation that we're getting herein. So yeah, I don't know. That's what that's my intuition about that subject matter.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, I've always just felt like, somebody should maybe at least address that other side, because we're all sitting there like, for those devotees that do know of the stories where devotees don't seemingly come out on the winning side, it's like we're kind of awkwardly sitting there like, wait,
right. I devotees lose too, homie. I just saw it last week. Right. Okay, Sid's got something.
I was wondering, since we're talking about time and its effect, and in the beginning, Atna point this point about time, spiritual energy being static or some kind of like fixed energy, which is an interesting way. I was wondering, since all the leaders are eternal, and since Krishna has, here Balya, Poganda, Yavana, different stages, and sometimes I've heard that there are different regions of Vrindavan where those leelas are happening. They're also eternal leelas, or are they not happening there? Are they only happening in the
Kumar Leela, Poganda Leela happen only in the material world? So there's some Krishna Sandarbha discussion, I think. But those leelas happen here in the material world. That's why they're considered particularly special.
So their mother Yashoda is just and all the other Gopas are just thinking about something that like that happened in the past, because they have never experienced Krishna as a baby there in the material world, in the spiritual world.
Yeah, they experience Krishna according to their bhav. Right. So bhava colors everything. Even here in the material world, your mood colors everything, right? The way you perceive reality is colored by your mental states, your mind.
Somebody says Krishna is 16 and old, and other person sees Krishna as 6 months old.
I don't know how it works exactly. I have to find this section. Tamir, I think this must be a Krishna or Tosi Vilas. You have to change your name now that you're initiated. Yeah, otherwise it is offense to Guru. Okay, I'm playing.
Yes, so I'll change the.
Tosi Vilas, you study Krishna Sandarbha, you've read quite a bit. Where it must come in Krishna Sandarbha, this discussion, no?
Yes, so.
Where it is coming, I haven't studied Krishna Sandarbha so carefully as I looked at other ones.
One second, bro. I'm just taking on my headphone, bro. So, bro, you asked where is it coming? That?
Yes, this subject matter of how Krishna's childhood Leela is there in the Prakat Leela only, not in the Aprakat Leela. And how the residents of Braja and the Aprakat Leela experience Krishna, those in the other rasas, like the cowherd boys and the parents. Anyway, we have to do some research. So Jiva Goswami giving a pretty expansive explanation of the Prakat Leela and Aprakat Leela there in Krishna Sandarbha. So I'm sure there's some insight there, but I haven't studied that section at all, actually. So
Actually, I read the first part only, like nicely. The second part I did not read.
Okay, so we have to do a little research project. But I don't know how they experience. Like, he's 16 years old, but they experience him at 6 months old.
I'm very happy today. I got a question which I can stump Jaya Jagannath Prabhu.
Oh, I'm stumped by many questions, especially these days. I'm most of the time stumped on me. I'm living my life day to day in utter bewilderment most of these days.
It's always good to have more questions than answers, and thankfully we have some.
Correct. I was with Jagannath and Kishore Chandra the other day. We were talking many things, Krishna conscious. And I said, I've come to the conclusion that the best name for God is mystery. It was very hard to understand so many. I said, I've been taking shelter of this verse from Brahma Stuti, where he says, those who say they know you, let them say like that. As far as I'm concerned, I know nothing. I just need them. So I'm like, that's kind of my mood these days. I'm just walking around utterly bewildered most of the time and just praying for grace. So thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
And then it says, but in the Indra Vitrasura Leela, externally, it looks like Indra won. Krishna was on the Devata side, even though Vitrasura was a devotee, right? Understood it was Krishna's way to have his devotee come back to him, right? So shouldn't Krishna have been on the Asura side, even in the Leela? He was on the Asura side in the Leela. That's why Vitrasura got an amazing result. He's on everyone's side. He's specifically on the side of his devotees. So his devotee was in a position of an Asura, so he was definitely on his side. But how that played out was as him being killed by Indra so that he can come back to the spiritual world. So that was Krishna being on the side of his devotee. But for those who only see with the external eyes, they will conclude that Krishna was against Vitrasura and for Indra. So that is why this whole subject matter is actually coming up, precisely because of these pastimes that we heard in the 6th canto. Actually, he's on the side of his devotee only.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any final thing? Well, otherwise we can just stop here. I'm flying.
Yeah.
Kyle. Oh yes, Gail, please.
Yeah. Just for half a second, just to return to that troublesome verse about ladies. We were saying that even if women and so on are considered lowborn, if they become his devotees, then they're protected. Wild, paraphrasing. But in that verse though, it doesn't actually say even if they are considered, right? He says it as if to say they.
I
Say
didn't
again?
remember the verse. I didn't remember the verse. Let's look at it. It just says this thing. Okay. Oh,
What's the
son,
number? What's the number?
it's chapter 9, verse 32, Bhagavad Gita.
Uh-huh.
So, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, and Shudras, can attain the supreme destination. So similar, it's saying here, ye api, su papayonayaha. So those who are api, even, so, even though they are papayonayaha, like having low birth or simple birth, Mamhi Partavya Pashrita, if they take shelter of me, and the list is given, Striya Vaishya Sita Shudras, then even they attain the supreme destination.
So why should ladies be pacified by your explanation?
Why should what? Oh, be pacified. No, because but my point is that the subject matter isn't about women, Shudras, or Vaishyas. That isn't the subject matter. The subject matter is the universal power and appeal of bhakti. That is the subject matter. So Krishna is not trying to make a case against women or against Shudras or against Vaishyas. He's making a case for bhakti. So in a particular social context, maybe women were considered this or that. Who knows? So say, because some tribes have translated this as women having the low birth, and some are saying that Papa Yonayaha is another category. So there's sinful birth, women, Vaishyas, and Shudras. So there are 4 categories. The way Prabhupada is translated, and a few other charts have translated this way also, is that the women, Shudras, and Vaishyas, they are part of the low birth category. Whatever, that's kind of irrelevant to the point that Krishna is making about the universal appeal and power of bhakti. That's the point that he's trying to make. So the point I was making when I brought it up was that one has to see what is the point being made. His point is that bhakti will bring one to the supreme destination, no matter who you are, no matter what you are. That's the point that he's making.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, okie dokie. I'm flying to Cali today, Cali, Colombia. My flight is at 5:50, and I arrived to Cali at 10:50. It'd probably take me at least an hour to get out of immigration if everything goes smoothly, which means I'll get to Sham Ashram, where I'm headed, at the earliest, I'll get there around 12:30, close to 1 o'clock. And I lose an hour because Kali at the present moment is 1 hour behind, which means I'll have to do class at 7:30 in the morning, which means I probably not get up in time or get up at the very last minute. So maybe tomorrow, excuses. Well, I wasn't going to cancel class, but I was going to say I had requested everyone here to try to do a small write-up of some of the themes encountered in this first passage, which we've just completed today. So I would like to hear a little bit of what everyone's understood from this particular section. And so we all get a chance to say a little bit here or there. I did request this about a week ago, so you've had plenty of time to ruminate upon it. And oh my God, Gopi sent her 7-page write-up last night. Okay, maybe you can take bullet points out of that and share it tomorrow. We won't be reading the whole 7-page dissertation, but maybe just the bullet points. And just have a little bit of discussion and or Q&A, depending on how it goes. So that's what I was going to suggest, not that we cancel the class, but I'm pretty sure I'll probably get up at the very last minute. So this is why I'm telling now. Okay, cool. Okay, Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Radhe Shyam, Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Govinda Hari Hari Bol, Shri Vrindavan.